Welcome back to part 2 of our 3-part Slovenian trekking series. If you are just joining us, you'll definitely want to pause and go back to listen to part 1, where we set the stage for this entire for fun summer vacation. To give you a quick recap of how we got here, Seb and I wrapped up our 3rd group travel tour in Italy and switched into vacation mode. We headed to the grand coffee capital of Trieste, where we faced the shock and reality of a city with 0 all-vegan restaurants, and took a train ride into Austria. From there, we officially crossed into Slovenia, spent a spectacular day exploring the iconic shores of Lake Bled. We managed to hunt down a flawless vegan version of the legendary Bleska Kremšnina cake and dodged a low-hanging limestone arch inside Pokljuka Gorge and executed a highly aggressive defensive grocery raid to stock our packs with plant-based trail supplies. We ended part 1 by overhauling our suitcases, leaving our heavy gear to be forwarded by our luggage transfer service, and going to sleep completely organised for our very first official day on the trail. So that brings us right to this episode. In part 2, we are officially lacing up our boots and stepping onto the Juliana Trail. Over the next few days, that severe European heatwave is going to put our bodies to the absolute test as we push for some serious training. We'll be diving into the absolute grit of the trail, a scenic lunchtime meadow that turns into a swarming fly trap, and a very knee-jarring descent. So let's adjust the backpacks because we are kicking things off bright and early on Sunday morning back at our base camp in Bled. So the day of our first official hike had finally arrived. We woke up early at our base camp with a massive checklist of logistical coordination to complete before we could lace up. After a quick shower, I headed out to grab us some hot coffees while Seb got busy assembling his custom hiking sandwiches. We bundled up all our refrigerated trail supplies, grabbed the frozen ice blocks from the hotel reception, and packed our day packs. Because we were using that seamless luggage transfer service to move our large bags, we only had to carry our lightweight day packs filled with our lunch, extra layers and raincoats. The morning was incredibly sunny and intensely hot, which was part of a very severe European heat wave that had been following us. And because the conditions were completely dry and it was so hot, I chose to hike in my sandals alongside a brand new hiking skirt that I had purchased the day before. This hiking skirt was an absolute game changer, and I really recommend people to consider wearing a hiking skirt instead of hiking shorts. They are amazing. And this stretch that we were starting was officially stage 5 of the Juliana Trail, which normally kicks off directly from the lakeside in Bled, weaving through local roads before making a relentless, grueling climb up the Pokljuka Plateau. This full stage spans a lengthy 21 kilometres with an intense continuous elevation gain of approximately 800 vertical metres, terminating in the forested mountain settlement of Gorelje. So hikers transition rapidly from the low elevation basin of the glacial lake up to a high alpine spruce plateau sitting at roughly 1,250 metres above sea level. Now, our decision may sound a little ridiculous to some hardcore purists, but we consciously chose to skip the first 7 kilometres of asphalt road walking by hiring a local taxi. Because this heat wave was so crazy, that first stretch of the trail was completely exposed to the blistering sun, and when we wanted to save our leg muscles and energy to tackle the worst of the mountain ascent before the day became completely unbearable. So for just €20, the driver dropped us off at the trailhead in the quiet village of Kanica, and it was easily the smartest tactical move we could have made. So if we officially started walking from Kanica, and after about 20 minutes of easy trail navigation, we left the road and plunged right into the incredibly steep, heart-pounding uphill climb. So the trail narrowed drastically as it entered the protected monuments of the Pokljuka Gorge. The path took us through a sensational, shadowy, natural limestone cave tunnel known as the Pokljuka Gorge, where we hiked beneath massive overhanging rock arches and natural stone windows. Emerging from the gorge, the terrain levelled out beautifully as we wound our way deep into the dense, majestic alpine pine and spruce forest of the Triglav National Park. By lunchtime, we found the perfect scenic mountain meadow to stop and enjoy Seb's handcrafted sandwiches. The reality was we picked a field heavily packed with local cows and abundant cow putts. An absolute swarming cloud of flies descended on us the moment we sat down. We inhaled our sandwiches in record time and kept moving. The forested trail moved quickly after that, and our hotel actually snuck up on us much faster than we anticipated. We walked out of the dense trees and arrived straight at Hotel Pokljuka, historically known as Hotel Sport, in the high alpine settlement of Goreljak, right around 3 p.m. Our rooms weren't quite ready when we checked in, so we happily lounged outside a bit until the keys were ready, and we headed up to wash off the mountain sweat. The hot shower felt absolutely spectacular. The hotel doesn't have any in-room fridges, which meant we had to play some creative Tetris to keep our leftover trail groceries cool, but the property itself was lovely. This hotel was constructed between 1928 and 1932, and it has a long-standing tradition as an elite mountain refuge, sitting at a refreshing, cool elevation of 1,250 meters. The hotel is actually a world-renowned altitude training hub for professional winter athletes and biathletes competing at the Rudno Polje World Cup Biathlon Center. It actually features specialized hypoxic altitude rooms that simulate sleeping at 3,500 meters. Seb and I joked that we should come back here to get ready for our Kilimanjaro trek. When dinner rolled around, we headed downstairs to the dining room, expecting to find nothing but standard unseasoned French fries, which are quickly becoming the recurring theme of our European meals when we're at unvegan-friendly places. So while we did order a side of fries, we were completely shocked to find several clearly marked intentional vegan options emblazoned right across the mountain menu. We both ordered their signature vegan pretzel bun, which came loaded with grilled tofu, golden crispy onions, and tangy sauerkraut. It honestly would have been elevated significantly if the kitchen had marinated the tofu beforehand, or if they had placed some spicy sriracha sauce on hand to punch up the flavor. But considering we were on a remote alpine plateau, it was a plant-based whim. We capped off our mountain success by relaxing on the terrace with a perfectly chilled Aperol spritz, soaking in the relatively cool, crisp mountain air. We headed to bed extra early to maximize our rest and let our muscles recover for tomorrow's big descent down into the valley. So the next day was June 29th. It was Monday, and our second day on the trail kicked off beautifully high up in the quiet spruce forests of the Pokljuka Plateau. We fueled up with a hearty breakfast at our hotel, and the local staff were kind enough to sell us a fresh, crispy baguette. This gave Seb immense joy, so he could make his sandwiches that he loves, and I think are okay, before we got started for our hike. So this stage represents a massive descent off the high plateau down into the majestic glacial basin of Bohinj, and the heatwave today was relentless, just so incredibly unseasonably hot. This was officially designated as Stage 6 of the Juliana Trail, and this trail plunges down the southern slopes of Mount Triglav's foothills. It was a long, knee-jarring trek covering roughly 22 kilometers. Now, the physical toll of today was no joke. Seb and I tracked a staggering 38,000 steps on this day, and the sweeping combination of the long distance, heavy downhills, and intense humidity was so punishing that the friction from my smartwatch sweating caused a blister on my arm. Yeah, it was crazy. As we dropped elevation, the dense pine forests opened up into breathtaking rolling alpine pastures dotted with sheep and traditional stone and wood barns. The scenery is heavily defined by classic Slovenian vernacular architecture. We walked right past the iconic toplji, the spectacular double-linked wooden hay racks that are entirely unique to the cultural heritage of this region. We also wound our way past postcard-perfect whitewashed alpine churches with distinct shingled bell towers silhouetted against the limestone peaks. Because the sun was baking the valley to an unbearable degree, my Davek travel umbrella completely saved the day. So this is a little lightweight umbrella, and it blocks the solar radiation completely overhead, creating a personal pocket of shade that is, in my opinion, vastly cooler and less suffocating and much more breathable than wearing a heavy hiking hat. We did actually do a little bit more hiking than the stage called for because we were booked in to stay at a lovely hotel for the next 2 nights, the magnificent lakeside hotel Bohinj. So this hotel was amazing. I could not stop going on about how much I loved it. So this hotel was fairly recently reopened after a complete award-winning architectural transformation. Hotel Bohinj is a stunning masterpiece of sustainable local design. It's clad in locally sourced larchwood and native stone, and the hotel effortlessly blends into the dramatic mountain landscape. The interiors are a sleek, minimalist tribute to local folklore, boasting soaring glass windows, open fireplaces, and exposed timber frames. It is perched just a stone's throw from the raw wild shores of Lake Bohinj, the largest permanent glacial lake in Slovenia. Unlike its manicured, bustling cousin Lake Bled, it is tucked deep inside a steep, dead-end glacial valley, offering a dramatically untamed atmosphere that feels pretty sacred. So our room here was massive, beautifully styled, and so comfortable. And as I mentioned, we were going to have this room for 2 days, as tomorrow was our highly anticipated official rest day, even though we'd only done 2 days. So by the time we took off our shoes, Seb and I were both completely, utterly exhausted from the heat and the mileage, too tired to contemplate navigating a restaurant menu. I stuck to what has quickly become my ultimate foolproof plant-based trail victory. I tossed a can of hearty chickpeas into a big crisp salad. I went out to the Mercator just across the road, drizzled it with my vinaigrette, had an Alpro blueberry yogurt, and enjoyed a quiet, effortless dinner in our room. And then I went into a beautifully long restorative early night and got 9.5 hours of sleep. It was amazing. I should add that we had just also finished running 3 trips in a row, and we were really tired from that as well. So I think that's another reason why we slept so long and why getting sleep was such a priority for us. And the next day was our Lake Bohinj rest day, and we were there on the 30th of June, which was marking the exact halfway point of the year. My goodness, the year is passing so quickly. And for the first time in what felt like ages, we did not set an alarm. So once we finally rolled out of bed, we headed downstairs to fuel up with a long, incredibly relaxing breakfast at the hotel. Honestly, I cannot recommend this hotel enough. The design was top tier. The breakfast spread was pretty good. I feasted on creamy overnight oats mixed with soy milk, a dedicated vegan lemon cake, a mountain of fresh seasonal fruit, including berries, and freshly baked local bread slathered in regional jam. We were more than happy. After breakfast, we retreated back to our massive room to tackle a mountain of work. It felt great to completely catch up on our digital tasks without the pressure of having to watch the trail clock. For lunch, we pulled up Happy Cow to see what options were available in the immediate lakeside area. We wound up at a small spot downtown. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it got the job done. I ordered a vegan bowl loaded with rice, fresh vegetables, lettuce and soy curls, while Seb opted for a hearty wrap filled with the exact same ingredients. By the afternoon, that heat wave was still baking the valley. We ran back to our hotel, threw on our swimmers, and marched straight down to the edge of Lake Bohinj. Now, unlike Lake Bled, which is fed by thermal springs, Lake Bohinj is a true alpine glacial lake fed primarily by the clean rushing waters of the Savica waterfall. Because it is surrounded by the sheer limestone walls of the Triglav National Park, the water stays deeply refreshing and crisp, rarely rising above 22 degrees Celsius, even in the dead of summer. Popular opinion favours it heavily over Bled for swimming because the water is crystal clear, pristine, and lacks any boat traffic. Sinking into those cool, glassy, glacial waters was perfection. We swam for quite a while, floating under the gaze of the Julian Alps. It was nothing short of glorious. We headed back to our room after this to spend the rest of the day completely relaxing. When dinner rolled around, Seb had a craving for comfort food and headed out to track down a vegan-friendly burger. I went to Mercator again and got that same salad bowl that I have been enjoying for the past 3 out of 4 dinners. I tossed together a big bowl of fresh greens with a pre-packed curry couscous salad, mixing it all up with my Italian dressing sachets that I had found in Mercator. I also managed to score some Alpro strawberry yogurts, my favourites, and chocolate puddings, also Alpro from Mercator. And that was an incredibly delicious, healthy and cheap dinner. We turned the lights out early, feeling really recharged, relaxed and ready to face the mountains again tomorrow. The next day, a monumental shift happened. The suffocating weeks-long European heatwave finally broke, albeit a little temporarily. The relief was incredible. So we left the lovely Hotel Bohinj as early as we could to seize the cool morning air, and it turned out to be a very easy breezy day on the trail. After about 2.5 hours of smooth hiking, basically staying in the valley, we cruised into our final destination for the day, the town of Bohinjska, Bistrica. This section was stage 7 of the Juliana Trail, which primarily connects the lakeside backcountry to the valley's main administrative hub. You walk along flat asphalt roads, quiet town sidewalks, and soft dirt tracks, weaving through local residential suburbs. The path opens up into expansive alpine meadows that serve a dual purpose. In the winter, this entire valley transforms into a premier hub for snow sports. So the trail cuts right past local ski lifts, ski training facilities, and even historic ski jumps. We walked into town and arrived at the Bohinj Eco Hotel around 12 o'clock. Naturally, we couldn't expect our room to be ready so early, so we dropped our day packs and walked over to find some lunch at the nearby Gostriše Peach restaurant. It's a hotel, but they had a restaurant as well. So we spoke to the restaurant team and was delighted to find that Happy Cow was correct and that they had an entire page dedicated to vegan options on their menu. Seb wasn't feeling very adventurous, so he stuck to French fries, but I ordered their specialized dumplings in a mushroom sauce. They weren't traditional dough dumplings, but rather mixed vegetables wrapped in a crisp phyllo pastry, smothered in a rich, savoury wild mushroom sauce. It was pretty tasty. After lunch, we circled back to the hotel to see if our rooms were ready. It was still a no-go. So we decided to head right next door to the Bohinj Aquapark and Wellness area. So even though it sits adjacent to the hotel, you still have to pay an extra fee, but it was entirely worth it. They have indoor pools and an outdoor pool and wild water slides, and we really enjoyed the refreshing water. By the time we wrapped up our swim, it was finally time to check in. The rooms were okay, but nothing special. We had originally contemplated booking the slightly fancier Sunrose 7 Hotel restaurant for dinner, as Happy Cow reviewers rave about their excellent plant-based culinary skills and their fabulous tasting menu. However, they only published their standard menu online and wouldn't give out specific details on their vegan menu because they change their menu every day. Seb didn't want to take the risk of paying €70 per person for a total mystery menu. And while he did say I could go by myself, I didn't want to drop that kind of money to dine alone. So instead, we chose to cocoon in our room for a few hours, listen to some podcasts and completely unwind. While we were tucked away resting, though, that was when the heat wave braked and a sudden thunderstorm rolled in. Finally, when we stepped outside later that evening, we were completely astonished to find that it had rained while we were listening to our stories. The brutal summer heat wave was paused, and the crisp, clean air left in the storm's wake was a huge relief. We went out for our evening walk through the freshly washed streets to gather a cozy post-storm picnic dinner. Seb had headed to a local spot to pick up the classic pica, which is like a Slovene style of pizza, and I walked over to the market to assemble my comfort meal. You would know it by now. Fresh lettuce, cherry tomatoes, creamy yogurts, and some other snack things. I tossed it all together with a Mercator house vinaigrette and had another delicious dinner. So that brings us to the end of part 2 of our Slovenian trekking adventure. We've officially survived the worst of the brutal European heatwave, conquered the steep climbs of the Pokljuka Plateau, logged a mind-blowing 38,000 steps in a single day, and found absolute paradise in the chilly glacial waters of Lake Bohinj. But our journey is far from over, so you definitely want to tune in for the grand finale in part 3. Coming up next, we are taking a break from pure walking to board the historic Aquapark, a quirky centuries-old car train that cuts straight through the mountain rock. We'll be tracking the breathtaking, surreal turquoise rapids of the Sochi River, stepping into the dark World War I military tunnels and uncovering the deep, moving history of the vertical mountain war fought right in these alpine peaks. And of course, we'll take you across the official finish line as we cross the border into Italy on foot before heading to the capital, Ljubljana, to celebrate with a 100% vegan steak night. It's an action-packed conclusion to our trek, so make sure to join us for the final leg. Until next time, keep exploring, keep eating well, and we'll see you in part 3.